crosswinds, Meplats, data card holders, and more this week on Mail Call Mondays. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. We're here on another Monday, and we're answering questions that you guys send in to our Facebook page, so let's get on with it. And our first question comes from POI Tactical. He asks, what is your number one tip for someone looking to finally get into a very high quality rifle that has shot and loved the entry level of quality rifles? Well, my number one tip is take your time and make sure you are getting what you need. You really want to sit down and line out what the requirements are for the rifle that you're looking at, and then take the time and see what options are out there for it. And really try to do it impassionately. You really don't want to fall in love with any one model and then kind of be blinded to its weaknesses and jump on that when there may be something else out there that you may not have thought of. So take a little bit of time, do a lot of research on what it is you really need in a rifle. Is it something you're going to shoot a specific type of match? Are there rules that govern that rifle? Is it just something you're going to take out and have some fun with, and then you're kind of unlimited on what you're going to do? Can you spend some extra money and get a switch barrel rifle to where it's going to work for a bunch of different stuff? Or are you really only going to need one specific caliber and you can save some money in that vein? So really, list out what it is that your requirements are, and then look at that. And also don't scrimp and try to save a couple of bucks on a rifle that you may have for a couple of decades. So remember, sometimes it may be better just to wait a little bit longer, save a little bit more money, and buy something just a slight step higher up that you'll be happy with for a longer period of time, because it's going to cost you more if you end up replacing that rifle in 5 years for something else versus spending a little bit more for a rifle that you're going to keep for 20 years. Savan asks, is the wind advantage you get from smaller, lighter weight, faster, flatter trajectory calibers worth what you give up from the 308? You mentioned that your 260 had problems on stages in your last competition. Do you feel that what you gained on the other stages made up for those two? Well, Savannah, I want to correct you real quick. It was a 243 that I was shooting down in Woody's, and there was really only one stage that it actually caused a problem on, and that was where I had brush between me and the target. I really can't blame that in the 243 because I know that's a weakness with the lighter, faster bullets that the heavier weight 308s have. So I should have moved my position right off the bat instead of trying to throw rounds through the brush and hope one that would make it through unscathed. 308 was never at any point in time an option for that match because there were too many other things where the advantage of a 260 or 243 or 6.5 Creedmoor really would have overrun the 308. Typically in tactical rifle matches, the 308s just really do not do all that well compared to the other calibers because you're really hamstrung by a lower velocity and by a lower ballistic coefficient bullet. So it just comes down to sheer math. In every way, shape, or form, I think the 243, the 260, the 6.5 Creedmoor, the other 6.5 and 6mm match cartridges out there just work so much better. So if you're specifically building a rifle to go into those kinds of competitions, I would say at the least start with a 260 or a 6.5 Creedmoor and go from there. If you're a beginning shooter and you're just learning the long range game, the 308 is a good way to go because you will get incredibly long barrel life compared to any of the other rifles. You really don't want to shoot a rifle out while you're just building your skill level, because when that barrel goes south, you may not realize it, and you may be second guessing yourself and questioning why you can't hit the broadside of a barn with your rifle, when in reality you just burned the barrel out. So 308 when you're learning, but after that, if you're going to compete in any of the open matches where they're not caliber limited, then go with a 260 at a minimum. 6mm, you're a little bit more limited on what kind of bullet selection you have. but the 6.5 and 6 millimeters definitely have an advantage over the 308. Paul asks, how to effectively shoot with two different crosswinds? Say a target is east and one wind is blowing south, another halfway to the target is north. Around half value wind, to shoot or not to shoot? Because I tried and failed. Well, Paul, the answer is always to shoot. In competitions or in the real world, you don't have the luxury of being able to wait until the wind is perfect. That's only something that we get in training, and it's not something that you should utilize. Holding a shot because of the wind, there's a very, very limited real world application where that's a good idea. You need to learn to address what the wind is doing, and you need to learn to shoot through it. Now, what I recommend is if you see that you have one wind going one direction and one wind going the other direction, that will typically cancel each other out, but not 100%. The best way to solve this problem is with an advanced ballistic calculator, something like Ballistic AE, where you can program in different winds at different directions. And it will actually go through and do all the math at what the speed the bullet has dropped to at each position and how that is going to affect the trajectory downrange. So that's the most accurate way to do it. If you don't have the luxury of doing that and you're just slinging a bullet and you're going off of what you are seeing downrange, then you need to remember that those crosswinds cancel out, but the wind closest to you is going to have a greater effect than the wind further away. Because while that wind further away is going to have a push on the bullet, it is going to deviate the bullet's path, that path doesn't magnify as much because it has less room to act on the bullet before it strikes its target. I hope that makes sense, but it's really going to end up being looking at the wind. If you have a half value wind close to you and you have a half value wind blowing the other direction further away from you, then that wind closest to you that's half value is going to have a little bit more effect on the bullet than the half value wind further down range. So you will get a little bit of shift to the direction that that closer wind is blowing. They're not going to exactly cancel each other out. The best way to learn to shoot in the wind really is to shoot in the wind. Get out there and see what the conditions are doing, see what your wind meter tells you. Get a Kestrel, something that's very accurate. Be very wary of the cheap wind meters. They generally do not work all that well when you compare them to a high-end meter like a Kestrel. Check what the wind's doing. Ideally, if you can have a weather station downrange to tell you what the wind is actually doing and a weather station at your firing point to tell you what the wind is doing, that will give you a whole lot more advantage. But it's kind of difficult when you start getting into wind systems like that. You start to get into a whole lot more money. If you can do something like put some smoke downrange to be able to see exactly what the wind's doing, that may help you out. There are a lot of little techniques out there to help you out to see what the wind's doing, but just shooting and observing is going to give you the greatest feedback. Jason asks, is using a Meplat uniformer worth it? Would it be best to use bushings for neck sizing brass, or can I just use a neck turning tool to uniform them? Well, Jason, the first part of your question is using a Meplat uniformer worth it? In the kind of tactical rifle shooting that we do, I don't think it is. I've never gone through and actually done all the Meplat trimming. One disadvantage of Meplat trimming is it lowers the ballistic coefficient of your bullet a bit. You're putting a nice flat spot on the front of the bullet. The reason that guys will do that in like bench rest shooting is because they don't care about that little tiny ballistic loss. They want absolute perfect consistency from bullet to bullet. Now, what I would do before I would go to Meplat trimming, if I was really had a burning desire to mess with each and every one of my bullets, I would go with a pointing die, like the Widden bullet pointing die, and instead of cutting a flat part on your bullet, it will actually mash the bullet into a more pointed nose, and that way you'll get consistency from bullet to bullet, but you'll retain a high ballistic coefficient. You won't be cutting a flat on the front of your bullet. In reality though, for tactical rifle shooting, more time spent on the gun, more time spent dry firing is going to give you a greater accuracy return than trimming the Meplat on your bullets. I really don't think with the rifles that we are using from a field firing position, a bipod and bag or off barricades or in any of the ginked up positions that we shoot in tactical rifle competitions, that you're going to get an advantage by trimming the Meplats on your bullets. Now, the second part of your question about neck bushings or bushings for neck sizing, I don't use any of the dies that require specific bushings. I want to be able to grab the brass from the lot that I need to size and roll with it. So for that reason, I use the Lee Collet neck sizing dies, and those seem to give really good concentricity on the cases, and they're not sensitive to the wall thickness of the necks. Now, if you did want to just use one bushing and you wanted to trim the necks of all of your cases to mate up to that one bushing, you can do that. That's perfectly fine, but it's adding time that you're sitting at the reloading bench, and it's time that I would prefer to be out doing other things. So that's one of the reasons that I don't do it. There are very specific points where I will trim necks. I resized some 308 brass down to 260, and that actually ended up with a little bit thicker neck than I needed for the 260 for the chamber of the rifle that I'm looking at. So I went ahead and turned the necks on those, and they'll give me very good consistent bullet release across all those cases, but it's not really something that, again, is needed for tactical rifle shooting as long as your brass will fit the chamber of your rifle. Jamie asks, 5R Kreiger barrels, is what they do noticeable to the average shooter, and is that difference worth it when compared to other heavy match barrels? Well, Jamie, what you get when you go with a Kreiger or a Bartlein or Broughton or any of those premium barrel blanks is you're getting consistency. When you buy that barrel, you know if the barrel's installed by a competent smith using the correct reamer and all that, that barrel's going to shoot. That is really the draw to those barrels over a factory heavy barrel rifle. If you grab something like, even in the Remington 700 police line of rifles, if you go through their heavyweight barrel lines, which are really a midweight when you get into precision rifles, if you grab one of those, though, you may have one that is an absolute hammer. Maybe it was made on new tooling. Maybe the guy that chambered that barrel was just really spot on that day and really takes some pride in his work, and maybe that rifle is just going to be a tack driver. It's just going to group perfectly. And then you get another one that's a Friday rifle. The guys were rushing to get out the door. The tooling was dull. They were towards the end of the service life on when they were going to switch out the tools that were used to make it. And it just, it kind of works. Maybe it's a 3/4 minute angle rifle or a 1 minute angle rifle. So both those rifles were made on the same tooling, they just weren't made to the same care. And with a custom barrel like a Kreiger, Broughton, Bartlein, there are a jillion of them out there. You are getting a barrel that manufacturer is proud to put their name on. So it's gone through extra quality control checks. They know that these aren't barrels that are going out to Elmer Fudd the hunter and he's going to try to whack a deer at 50 yards with. They know these barrels are going to competition shooters by far and large who really desire the utmost accuracy. And if they don't get it, they're going to tell the world. So you're getting consistency, you're getting better quality. That's what you're getting with those barrels. Now, amongst the barrel manufacturers, the difference between those, it shrinks to really small. Now, if I can't tell you that I would be able to pick up a Kreiger barrel, a Bartlein barrel, a Rock barrel, and have them all chambered by the same guy and shoot them side by side and be able to tell any difference between them at all. I just don't think I'm that good of a shooter. So as long as the barrel will provide the accuracy requirement that I'm looking for, then we're good to go. The 260 that I'm having built right now, we're using a Bartlein barrel on it, and part of the reason is because they have a great reputation for quality and the barrel was available. I could call the company up, drop my credit card number, and have the barrel on the way to me the next day. So sometimes that's what it comes down to, is just what the availability is. But if you got a buddy that just recently had a rifle built and his is just hammering the target, then maybe go with the blank that he used. It just really, the consistency among the premium barrels is good to go, and that's what you're going to get even as an average shooter over a factory barrel. But as an average shooter, I don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference between the premium barrels. Our next question comes from Moses. He asks, do you use a holdover or dial in our scope for every shot during competition? Well, it all depends upon the stage. If speed is really the goal of the stage, if my time is at a premium, then I'm going to hold over. If I've got all the time in the world to make a shot, then I'll dial my elevation, because that is going to be the most accurate. It really, if I dial, it limits my ability to screw up, because I have sent a shot down range before and realized that I was holding on the wrong tick mark on the reticle. It happens occasionally. So if you can dial, it eliminates those kind of errors. But a lot of stages that we shoot are really, time is at a premium on them. You're really in a compressed time frame, and you need to get those rounds down range. And not dialing allows you to maintain your position. You don't have to break your position to come up and dial the scope. And depending upon how your rifle's set up, you may not have to shift your vision at all. Now, what I'll generally do when I am dialing is I will keep my cheek weld, and I'll look up at the scope turret, and because of the way my rifle's set up, I can see the scope turret from my firing position with my left eye usually. So I can see what I'm dialing to without actually taking my cheek off of the stock, and I can see through and see that I'm getting on target with my shooting eye. Now, my windage, if for some reason I wanted to dial windage, I generally do have to rock my head to the side a little bit to see the tick marks on the windage turret, but I rarely ever dial windage. I will usually just hold for wind, unless you have such a crazy wind out there that you're not able to hold on the actual reticle itself. So most of the time I'm going to hold. The last shoot, the Woody's match, I held for almost all the stages. There were only one or two where I actually dialed my elevation on, and it was like on the static 200-yard stages where we're shooting paper, shooting the eggs, that kind of stuff. I went ahead and dialed my elevation in because I was just laying there. There was no transitioning to different target lines. Almost everything else I went ahead and held in the reticle. Sean asks, can you give us an update on the MATEN, specifically the coulda, woulda, shouldas? Well, Sean, we've been putting that off for a little while. I hope to get to that in the next week or two. We've really been shooting the MATEN quite a bit, and there aren't a whole lot of things that I would change on it, but there are a couple. So I really want to try to get into that and do the full wrap up on it and let you guys know what we would change on it and what we're really satisfied with. So go ahead and stay tuned for that, and of course we'll let you know on our Facebook page, and we'll upload to the YouTube channel as soon as that project's completed. Steve asks, is it possible to obtain a firing solution with a Casio G-Shock watch and a FDAC? Well, absolutely it is. On the flip side of the FDAC, there is a table that allows you to convert your atmospheric conditions that you'll get off of your Casio to density altitude. You then take the density altitude, and that's what you flip over and actually use on the sliding portion of the FDAC to get your firing solution. So that will work fairly well. What you really want to be aware of, though, is if you're going to use something like a Casio G-Shock for a firing solution, you don't want it on your wrist. The heat from your body can alter the readings that are on the G-Shock. So you really want to take it off, strap it onto your web gear, strap it onto your pack strap, something like that. Don't have it in a pocket, don't have it on your wrist. The same goes even for a high-end device like a Kestrel. Don't have it tucked inside your clothing where your body's warming that Kestrel up. What I try to do is on my war belt that I use for shooting, I've got a pouch in the back, like an old butt pack pouch, but this one's considerably better. And I will keep my Kestrel in that pouch. That way it's not getting heated up by my body, because that's really off my body, and there's a padded belt between my body and that pouch even. So it's less likely to get hot in there or be affected. So take the Casio off, make sure it's not on your body. Don't let it sit and cook in the sun either. And it'll give you better accuracy as far as those environmentals. But once you convert it on the table on the back of the FDAC and then put it into the slide rule on the FDAC, you'll be good to go, and you should get fairly accurate results. Seth asks, I've been looking for a stock sleeve with a clear pouch to place range cards in. I'm striking out. Any advice? Well, Seth, if I understand what you're asking for something where you have a sleeve that is actually on the stock of the rifle. And what I would recommend instead of something like that is something like this deal here. This is called a wrist coach, and this is actually from Under Armour. And what it allows you to do is allows you to put cards. They actually have to be 2 3/4 inch, I think, 2 3/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch or so. So you may have to trim regular index cards, but it allows you to put them in this clear little window. And this thing is a neoprene type material, so you can stretch it and put it on your forearm. And in addition to this window on the outside, you can flip it open, and there are 2 windows on the inside. So you can put range cards and all kinds of cool stuff on there and put it on your forearm. And what that allows you to do with it on your forearm is, if you can picture it there, when I have that arm cocked up supporting the back of the rifle, then I can just look down and see the information that I need to dial on my scope, or see the information that I need to hold. If you had this on the side of your stock, then when you're in position, when you want to see that information, you're going to have to come off and kind of look at the side to figure out what's going on. If it's on the opposite side, same thing. You're going to have to come off the rifle and look over here and see what's going on. Something like this is really a better option. Now, this is cheap. This is designed for football. It's really not designed specifically for what we do. If you get rough with it, it's going to start tearing up that neoprene pretty quickly. I think this MSRP on it was 16 bucks. I got it off of Amazon for a little bit cheaper. TAG makes a higher end deal that is designed specifically for military and law enforcement use. It's got several different clear windows in it that you can put. It's really designed for putting high value target information, that kind of stuff in, so you can flip it open and look at that. But it works for precision rifle shooting as well. And we'll leave a link to TAG's website down below where you can go and take a look at that. Again, it's not an ideal solution. I actually think this may be a little bit better for competition type shooting than that. But because the TAG deal allows you to fold it up completely and protect those windows if you're using it for hunting or something of that nature, then the TAG version may be better, because that window will be protected and you're not flashing white paper around in a otherwise natural environment. So take a look at that. I think that will work better. I haven't really seen any that actually allow you to stick a window on your stock. If you're going to go that route, it may be a good idea just to make up some labels and stick some labels on your stock. That's pretty normal. Guys will print out on a regular laser printer their dope chart and then just use clear packing tape and tape it on the side of the rifle or inside the scope cap. And there are some other options out there. Impact Data Books makes some Velcro stick-on dope labels, and we'll leave that link down in the description below. So there are a bunch of different ways to stick the dope on your rifle, but I think this is a really slick way to use for competition type shooting. And our final question of the day, Brandon asks, are there any 2-stage triggers for Remington 700 actions? Well, Brandon, I know of at least one trigger out there made by CG Extreme, and we are trying to get a hold of that. It's actually Extreme Shooting Products. They make a 2-stage tactical trigger for the Remington 700. It's designed to be robust, to be resistant to dirt and corrosion, etc. And when we finally get a hold of one of those and get it in and get some trigger time on it, we will do a full review on it. But in the meantime, we'll leave that link in the description below so you can go check it out yourself. They are fairly pricey, but when you're getting into high-end two-stage triggers, you really don't want to scrimp. The fire control system on your rifle is one of those make it or break it parts. If it doesn't function correctly, it can get you DQ'd from a match, or worst comes to worst, it can put holes where holes don't belong and end up sending somebody to the emergency room or the morgue. So make sure you don't really cheap out on triggers. Triggers need to work perfectly, and for that reason we hesitate to make any endorsements on that trigger until we've actually had it in and gotten a chance to get it dirty and try it out. As soon as we get a chance to, though, we will do a full review on that. And that's all we have for this week. I hope you guys have liked the show. If you have, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you've got any questions or comments about the show, please leave them in the comment section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. And you notice we have the Bushnell Lightweight Modular Spotting Scope, the LMSS, sitting here. We're getting ready to wrap up the review on it. Very good piece of equipment, very robust. If you're in a hide and you're getting overrun and you run out of ammunition, you can take this thing off the tripod and use it as a secondary weapon. It's really that heavy duty. Although it's built heavy duty, it's built like a tank, it really does not weigh you down. It's not that heavy a piece of equipment when you don't load it up with rails like we have here. The rail system obviously allows us to put a dot sight or laser designator on the front. We can mount a night vision scope to the front here, and we have this nice rail section underneath that allows us to snap it into the Alamo 4-star tripod that we have underneath, which is also another very nice piece of equipment. So look forward to the review on this coming soon. And until next time, get out and shoot!